What's going on, guys? Sensible Prepper Live. Welcome. Hope you guys are doing well. We have Robbie Wheaton with us this week.
Glad to be back.
Glad you're back. Glad you're back. I'm really glad because we're having Flannel Tuesday.
That's
today. Right. And
unannounced and unplanned.
Unannounced and unplanned. Well, I would have worn my other color if I'd have known you were going to wear the orange.
Yeah, I almost wore that color, but I was like, he's probably going to wear that color, so I'm going to wear something like flamboyant.
We need something flamboyant and light. We also appreciate Sarah Mack. She is over monitoring the comments. We will be taking some breaks for questions a couple of times, and you can go ahead and start asking questions now. She keeps track of all that ahead of time. We're going to talk about something today that's a little bit applicable to what's going on all around us right now. And I think it's really important not only to talk about this, we're going to have some things that we want to kind of some solution ideas as well toward the end. But a lot of this is just things that are going on and why we need to prepare, why we need to continue to prepare. But we're not going to get into a lot of those specifics, but we have some things we want to talk about. We also appreciate Exotac for sponsoring today's episode. You get $20 off every 100. No, you get 20% off. My brain's not here today. I'm too busy thinking about world events than little events. But Exotac is a 20% off using Sootch 20. All their products are made down in Winder, Georgia. They are the best fire starters on the market. I love them. Been using them for years, and they're just a great company. And so link will be down below in the description. So we're going to talk about possible world war. What is going on? And of course,
is it possible though, or is it probable at this point? Because you watch the news in the United States, and I don't really care what news network it is, liberal, conservative, somewhere in the middle. There's very, very little that they talk about on our national news concerning world events and what's going on. If you really want to know what's going on outside of the United States, you have to do a lot of research yourself and look at some news networks from other parts of the world that give you a different perspective on how the world sees things.
I agree.
The last couple of days, I've been watching a lot of international news. Especially on YouTube, like Al Jazeera Network is one that I've been watching a lot of, and they still lean more toward the liberal side, but they give you a lot more information than what you can find on our national news in the United States.
I agree. It's one thing, and I look at Fox News some, but one of the things I notice is there is more about Taylor Swift than there is the conflict going on in Israel.
The conflict's going on all over the world.
All over the world.
There's events in Africa right now. There's multiple events in the Middle East. There's multiple events in Europe. There's countries battling countries all over the world right now.
Right. And, I guess the thing is, it's just they just want to keep us isolated. I think one of the things, though, is, of course, on the forefront is the war right now going on with Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah in the north. Then you have Iran and Syria that are making really credible threats. U.S., we have a battle fleet there. We have 2,000 troops, I think they're planning to put on the ground.
Right.
And then you have Russia, which is connected with Iran because Iran furnishes a lot of their drones that they're using against Ukraine. We've supported Ukraine, so that doesn't make us any closer to Russia. A lot of the sanctions that have been placed and things that are going on have really caused a lot of animosity toward the U.S., which, Israel has always been a close ally to the U.S. And then, of course, we have China and Taiwan. That's another hotbed. And one of the things about Taiwan is that they produce the most microchips.
Yeah.
They produce a large percentage of the world's microchips. And it's part of the reason why China wants them. And it's another reason why we're protecting them. It's not just the freedom of the China or the independence of the Taiwanese people. there are ulterior motives behind these things. Just like with Ukraine and Russia. I mean, what a mess. And we've spent billions of dollars. Now it seems like you don't hear anything about Ukraine and Russia right now because everybody's kind of focused on the Middle East.
Not in the U.S. news.
Right. Saudi Arabia started turning a little bit more of a hard line toward Israel. So, there are a lot of massive potential conflict areas. There's a lot of saber rattling right now. And the one thing is, and Robbie, you and I both are in the same boat. We have boys, we have young men that are of the age, our sons are of the age.
Yep. Military age men.
It's funny because over the past few years, with the way the U.S. policy's been, I've been kind of like, man, I wouldn't want for my children to be sacrificed to anything like that. But the thing is ence you get to a certain point, what are they going to do? And of course, with our numbers in the military, our enlistments dropped because of a lot of the policies that are going on in the military, which has weakened our military.
It has. It's weakened our world position is exactly what it's done.
And so we have some desperation there. And then even before a lot of this started happening, we have BRICS, which is the Soviet Union, Russia, China, India, which is kind of surprising. We have South Africa, and they have just met down in South Africa over going from the U.S. dollars being the world currency to having alternatives. One of the big things, though, that they are really against are sanctions against other countries. And here's the thing, guys, if it wasn't for sanctions to other countries, there's no motivation for those countries to do any better. And so,
well, and it also allows countries that the U.S. places sanctions on to be able to produce a lot more money, to be able to buy different things, whether it's materials for war, it's materials for weapon production, materials for nuclear innovation within their country. And a lot of the times the sanctions that we place against countries are not only to protect the other countries around that particular country, but to protect the entire world from that country and things that they're wanting to do.
Right. Because we become more and more global and we become more and more tied to these nations.
Yep.
We have become vulnerable to, if a war does break out, we have a lot of ties and connections and favors, just like with Iran and Russia. They have a lot of ties there. And so they're going to protect their interest.
Well, and one of the bad things for the United States is, the last few decades, we have switched from a producer to a consumer. We don't produce a whole lot in this country anymore, but we consume a lot of goods that we import. So, in the case of a global war, the majority of the materials that we import into this country, be it for day-to-day living or military production, a lot of that stuff is imported, and we're going to lose the potential to be able to import those products, and we're not going to have the capability, at least initially within our country, to be able to produce the materials that we need to be able to fight a global war.
That's true. That's true. And there was more of a push to bring back a lot of that industry. And I don't know that that's continued as strongly as it was. World War II is a perfect example where we had the industrial might to be able to fight that war on multiple fronts. Yep. And it's amazing, honestly, when you go back and look at the historical record of what happened with the U.S. and that can-do attitude and the way we geared up for war.
Well, World War II really pulled us out of the Great Depression because it did create jobs and it did bolster our economy tremendously to be able to put people to work, put soldiers in the military, and for our country to become a producer again, a world producer. Initially, even though we got into the war late, World War II, actually, from the beginning, we were providing material assets for multiple countries that were fighting that war.
Right.
And that's what really pulled us out of the war, was being able to bolster our manufacturing, get our manufacturing up to speed to be able to provide war materials for other countries.
Right. That's right. And, it's just that we're finding ourselves, too, as a nation, that we're very divided. This situation that happened, this going on in Israel right now. The U.S. has usually been a very strong supporter, which the majority of people are. But there's a lot of people now that are looking at the other side.
Yeah.
One of the things about it too, and you hear a lot on the news that can be conflicting, and you hear a lot of things, especially commentators, even on YouTube, some that I follow pretty strongly, and have even created a little bit of doubt in my mind about, but when you really look at the history of what's going on over there, it gives you a real clarity on who to support. And let me just say this, there are people from all over the world that watch what we do. And we don't want to get into the politics of all the stuff that's going on. But if you're a nation that is just trying to survive, and then, the other nations around you are just for your total destruction, it just makes it kind of tough to be able to negotiate in any way. So, but then, we're looking right now here in the U.S. at immigration. I mean, just massive amounts. Thank God Biden has started considering and kind of starting to do more to protect our borders.
The big question about that is, with our borders being wide open for the last 3 years, is it too little too late? How many people have came into this country with bad intentions in their mind, with, a lot of people view the United States as evil and are willing to come into this country to do bad things to Americans, to cripple our country, be it our economy, our water supply, our fuel supply, everything. And those people are playing a long game. They're not playing a short game. And if they're willing to come into this country 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years before they carry out an attack, and they kind of assimilate, they become Americanized, and people don't look at them as a potential threat. But the entire time they're here, they're planning. And with our borders being open, we have no way of vetting a lot of these people that come into this country and to possibly prevent these type of attacks from happening, because these people are just allowed to walk across the border into our country.
Now, last week we talked about possible terrorist attacks here in the U.S., and we had the Day of Jihad on Friday the 13th, and it was very
anticlimactic.
It was very anticlimactic. But let me say this. This deal in Hamas has been going on for years. This whole plan, there's a lot that went on behind the scenes that prepared them for what they did. 9/11, it took a long time for them to plan that. It was like Robbie was saying, it's a long game. There's a lot of preparation. We did see some stabbings and some stuff here and there around the world, but really, as far as a massive uprising, we didn't see hardly anything.
Right.
So, but let me just give you this. And this is the danger. This is the danger, especially with people that are going, even this subject, which I really feel like this is not clickbait. This is something that's really important for us to look at. This is possible. This is really probable, as Robbie has said. But a lot of times people are, this is coming up. This is going to happen on this date, this and this and this. And it never happens. And what happens, even to the prepping community, is you kind of see something and you go, oh yeah, whatever. And then you go, that's just another date that happens. And you know what? Most of the time that's true. But one of the things that we need to realize, especially with potential terrorist threats that could happen here in the U.S., is that a lot of these are being planned, and it takes time to plan them for something that's really catastrophic.
That's right.
Most of your little, guy comes out and starts. There was one thing I saw where this was in, I think was
Belgium.
Yeah, Belgium, where the guy comes in and kills a couple of people, and he's on the loose, and they're going to find him, which is a terrible tragedy. It's terrible. And it puts fear in all of that area. But really, it's minimal compared to, what goes on in a major deal. But, don't fall asleep, because that's what happened. That's the reason 9/11 was even able to happen, is we had fallen asleep. And so
lack of intergovernmental communication with one another.
Right.
One group had intel, but they wouldn't share it with other groups within our country, within our government. And because everybody wants to be the hero and be the one that captures the bad guy, instead of sharing information and protecting the citizens of this country.
But also it dilutes the actual mission. This
Right.
is the one thing that happens with Congress, and it happens all the time, is something will happen like 9/11. And then you have the Patriot Act, and you have all these different things that they start to push to combat terrorism.
Mm-hmm.
But then they say, well, we can't profile. So then everybody is under that scrutiny. So what happens is under these laws, because they can't specify, even though that's the reason they passed them, then they see you as doing a little something. You have so much ammo, you have so many guns, you fall under that terrorist, which, label.
Yeah.
The thing is, these laws that are being passed are being used against all of us. It's funny to me, I go up to the DMV when we moved here from North Carolina to South Carolina and moved down. I'd had a driver's license previously in South Carolina for years. I was born here. It took an act of Congress, to get all the paperwork that I needed to prove who I was to the dumb DMV. Because illegal aliens, illegal aliens were coming into the country. They were getting false paperwork and able to get licenses and social security numbers and all this. So instead of focusing on that, they just make a broad brush statement. And that's the danger of passing these laws, because they'll use it against us. Yes, it's a law against terrorism. You know what? I'm all about it. We need to stop this. And then I go to the airport, and the guy that's walking right by me, it looks like he came out of Baghdad, it just walks right through. And then the little old lady who's 90 years old trying to go through, TSA is going to give her a cavity search. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And so it's like we are paralyzed to really be effective to do whatever we need to do in so many ways.
I think that's one thing with Israel that I really admire, is the fact that they recognize things for what it is. They call things what it is, and they attack and they approach things head on, instead of being politically correct and this broad stroke approach to everything. When they see something that's bad and something that's wrong, they attack that head on. And we do not do that in the United States. We could learn a lot from the way they approach things in Israel compared to the way we approach things here in the United States.
Well, and two, I think one thing about Israel is that they have such scrutiny from the world governments that they are very careful a lot of times to go the extra mile, which ends up hurting them a lot of times. One of the things that happened with this guy that planned this whole Hamas attack, and the Palestinian people, not all of the Palestinian people in Gaza, I think it's 42%, do not support Hamas on the West Bank for their group. They even support Hamas even less. Like 60% of the population does not support what the Hamas is doing. So you can't just bunch the Palestinians. And you know what? They have gone through a lot of bullcrap. But a lot of them have brought it on themselves with this kind of stuff. But the guy that led Hamas across the border, that planned the whole attack, had already killed 2 Israelis before, had kidnapped some people, and they gave him back to Hamas in exchange for an Israeli soldier. So here he is, a convicted, murderer, and he's back over there. And he is hell bent on, destruction. But it's not the Palestinian people altogether. And you got to make sure that you're careful with that, because it's really easy to do.
Well, it's no different than lumping Americans into one category: conservative, liberal, whatever. It's very easy, based on what you see on the news today, whether it's American news or the world news, to lump all of us into one category or another.
Right.
And the Palestinian people are no different than that. There's many of them that they're great people.
Well,
but they all get lumped into that Hamas category when a lot of them are not.
Right. When this first happened, that's the first thing I thought.
Yeah.
And then I had to think. Now, one thing is, guys, is always be analytical and think things through. Don't just take for granted what's put in before you. Take the historical record, look at it, consider what's going on. One of the things that I found that's very fascinating is, with China. And China has been, kind of the enemy of America and a lot of things going on. What's funny to me, though, is the Chinese people in general, because I do, especially with like Olight and some of these other companies, they love, and not just the ones that, not because they're making money, because these are even just the workers. They love America.
Yep.
It's just like when China looks at the U.S. and they think U.S. is evil. There's so many good people here that want to do the right thing, that want to have free trade, that want to do whatever we need to do to have a good relationship with other countries. And a lot of times it's just the government that they're looking at, and they label the entire nation that way. And I think that's one of the things that you have to look at, whether you're looking at Israel or Hamas or whatever you're looking at. Iran has a lot of good people in there, a lot of good people that are just they're victims. They're victims. Unfortunately, we're becoming more victims here in the U.S., and that's what's really a shame. But one of the things about immigration, I just want to talk about this. Listen, we need immigration. We need it. And there's a certain protocol that brings in immigrants to help with the U.S., whether that's Latin Americans or Europeans or even Asians, whatever. I mean, I'm not against immigration, but the problem with the way we're doing it now, it's causing a mass disruption, especially in Texas. And now that they're shipping them to these larger cities, they're seeing the devastation that it's causing because it's just haphazard. But the big thing about immigration should be an assimilation. These people come into the country, they become Americanized because they take the Constitution and they see our values and the freedoms that offers, and they support that. And then you don't have to, doesn't matter about race, creed, anything else. Doesn't matter about the color of your skin. An American is an American. And, for me, it's funny because, my ancestry, I have American Indian. And it's not enough to where I'm considered an American Indian because I'm mostly Scottish. But there's some back there in the woodpile, there's American Cherokee Indian. So, we all have these things going on. But the one thing that joins us all together is the U.S. Constitution. And the fact is principles, real true principles, never age. The right things, the truths, they never age. And so that's one of the things, and we'll go ahead and jump to this a little bit, is the Second Amendment. Listen, guys, in Israel right now, they are bringing back their Second Amendment. That's because, these people, they were only 2% of the Israeli population is armed. Only 2%. And of course, your military, they just trust the military will take care of them. Guys, don't ever give up your Second Amendment rights. And we see it so evident on the world stage, just like Ukraine. We saw that where they were handing out full auto AK-47s to just people because they wanted to let them protect themselves and their nation.
That's why I think that's one of the things that even from World War II forward has kept our country so safe, is the fact that we have such a strong Second Amendment, and the world recognizes that. All the countries of the world recognize that if they invade the United States, the vast majority of us are armed already, and we are willing to take up arms to protect our country.
Well, even people that don't own firearms know somebody that owns a number of firearms.
That's right.
And they can be given out, So just like Red Dawn, that was a beautiful picture. And if we had not had a Second Amendment, that wouldn't have happened.
No.
And so it's funny. We celebrate a lot of that stuff, and then in real life we diss it. It's really funny. Okay, I'm gonna give just a second here to get some questions, but we want to take some questions because we want to get your input because it's always really good. One thing I do want to mention though, while I'm stopped here is, and I have to mention this, I don't know why I mention it every time, is the Modern Survival Guide for the Coming Economic Collapse. This is actual events that happened in Argentina back in 2001. And it goes through all kind of different things of what happened, how things transpired, and what to do to help get through it. And this is, again, actual events. It's really a great book. It's kind of like my Bible for survival. And, it's just one of those that I always recommend. And there's a link down below in the description. I kept talking about it. And so we finally got a link, Amazon link down there. So just want to throw that out. All right, what we got?
Sean Nelson asked, do you keep a Geiger counter as part of your preps?
Yes. Yes. In fact, I even have one of the old style civil, defense ones, but also a modern one. You can buy, get on Amazon. You can buy Geiger counters, radiation. It'll detect radiation, and there's a number of different styles according to what you want. Some of them are fairly reasonable, but also get potassium iodide. Get potassium iodide if there's ever any kind of nuclear attack. And guys, if we've ever been on the cusp of it, it's now. But mainly because of Iran and North Korea, more than even China and Russia. But potassium iodide goes straight to your thyroid. And one of the things about radiation is if you're in a radiation, in a fallout or exposed to radiation, it goes into your thyroid. So it replaces it to protect it. And there's a lot of other things. But guys, we did a live actually about nuclear radiation. Robbie did radiation, biological, chemical classes in the Marine Corps. And so let me just say this before we finish up. I didn't even talk about Robbie's YouTube channel, which is Robbie Wheaton, and also Wheaton Arms. And we will talk a little bit more about that because I don't want to mess it up. But yes, there are some Geiger counters, and you should have one. They're not all that expensive.
Wicca Elfock asks, off topic, but do you know how long an unused Sawyer mini shelf life is?
I don't. And they do degrade. For me, I keep the ones, I have some extras. I keep them sealed in a dark location, without sunlight, and in the original packaging. And of course I have them, but really, I don't know. I know that Berkey water filters, over 2 or 3 years, because we have bought some extras, sometimes they will start to degrade, and those filters can and will, but that's something probably that would be good. Do you have a point? I know you have been doing some stuff.
I don't, as far as like long-term studies, I don't. I've got some filters now that we vacuum sealed and have stored, and we're doing some long-term testing on them vacuum sealed to see if it provides longer shelf life compared to the ones that aren't vacuum sealed.
That's a great idea.
But I don't have that data, and it's going to be a few years before I actually.
So if you can wait a few years, well, we'll go into that, because I think we've had that question a couple of times. And it's the question I have for myself, because we do buy those filter systems, and it would be good to know. So hopefully, we're coming up, we'll try to get some answers.
Steady at Home asks, how do you feel about our southern border, and do you think we may be in danger because of it? How should us as Americans be prepared for a terrorist attack? Stay away from crowds, football stadiums, concerts.
Okay, first thing I want to recommend is we did a live stream yesterday. Good Lord. We did a live stream last Tuesday about possible terrorist attacks in the U.S. and a list of 10 things that you need to consider. I condensed that on my Sootch channel, Sootch00. It's my gun channel. And I did a similar video, but it's more condensed. And I did add medical, which I left medical out last week, which is surprising. So that'll give you some thoughts about being prepared and situation awareness, things like that. Now, as far as the southern border, there are so many possible threats.
Yep.
There are so many people that are coming over the border, though, that are just looking for a better life. But there's a lot of just men coming across the border. And a lot of people have said this, fighting age men.
Military age men. Exactly right. And they're not just Central and South American. There are fighting age men from all over the world coming across our southern border into the United States. And no one knows what kind of intent they have, because none of these people are being stopped and being vetted before they're allowed into our country. So yes, I think that is a huge, huge potential for someone to come across our border with nefarious intentions in mind to carry out a terrorist attack within the United States. It's probably the most porous, most open area that anyone that has nefarious intentions would have to be able to get into our country.
Now, I did read something recently where they've had over 100,000 people come across the border from nations that typically support terrorism. or at least they're sympathetic to it. Just to give you an example, they've had over 30,000 people from Turkey. Now, Turkey's actually more of a moderate Islamic state, so the potential of jihadists or whatever coming through. But they have gotten a number of people that have been on the terror watch list that have come across the border. Some they've gotten. I mean, and these are just the ones they've caught. They caught over 100,000. Yep. So 100,000 people that are from those areas, and not all of them are going to blow up the world, but there is a good chance that they're coming from there. A lot of people from Africa, China, a lot of people coming across the border from China, flying to Mexico in a jet, and then coming across the border. So, there is a massive threat down there. What gets me is why it's been all attempts to close off the border. Why have they been fought against by our own government? What is that? And what are the reasons? It just doesn't make sense. And when it doesn't make sense, typically, unless you're just ignorant, and I could be, there are some things about that are just not right. It smells of a design, which I hate to do it, but it is what it is. So yes, I think we have a major threat. But what's funny is I noticed that I saw an interview with some people that had come from South America, and they said they're here, and they go, the prices are a lot higher, food's higher, to live here is higher. Yes, we have a job, but it's more expensive to live here. It's more complicated. And so a lot of them are going back. But those are probably the people that came for good reason in the first place, looking for a better life.
Raverboy 420 says, question, thoughts on the female draft change bill?
I think it's absolutely sickening. I mean, if a woman wants to join, more power to you. There's some girls out there that would do great. Whatever. I mean, I don't want to fight that battle, but the problem is for young ladies to be drafted into the military, and especially the way things. And here's the thing: it's not a problem if they're going to go to other areas and support and help and nursing and all that stuff. That's great. But unfortunately, the way that our mindset is here in the U.S., it's like, well, we can't differentiate, so we're just going to send them out, in mass. And I think that's wrong. I think they need to, we need to listen. And this is not popular, but I don't care. Is men need to be men, and women need to be free to follow their dream. And if they want to be a pilot in the Navy, or they want to do whatever, more power to them. I think it's awesome. But men need to be men. And one of the things about men is that we protect women. And again, I don't care if you like it or not. That's the way we have been from for a long time. And chivalry and being a gentleman and being a man and taking your role as a man, that's one of the problems that we're facing, because the lines are being crossed. And, it's definitely a difference with our physical, with our psychological, with the way we think about things. It's just different. And it just is. And so I don't like it. I don't think that women should be drafted. No.
Terry Thomas says, great info as always. Question, has anyone considered a specific frequency or channel to monitor in case of communication issues that will assist citizens groups to stay connected?
Yeah, there are a lot of groups out there that have certain programs for their groups typically. But as far as a nationwide deal, I don't know of one. But
I'm not aware of any nationwide standard that people are using right now.
Now, we have people in our prepper group that would know, because we've got some pretty serious communication guys in our group. But as far as for me being a layman, I don't know of any. And two, a lot of times people are very secretive, and I'm not going to say secretive, but they want their privacy, and they don't really want all their information out there, and with encryption codes. And of course, the U.S. military and the government can crack those codes. So it's not something nefarious, but it's just to have some of that going on. But, no, I don't know of one. Okay, we'll come back to questions in a minute, because we want to talk a little bit more. Now, when it comes to the U.S., and this is something that, to me, we've got China, solidarity. We've got Russia, solidarity. I mean, these Russians, not everybody agrees on everything, but they are about Russia. And you've got India and all these different nations that are part of this BRICS deal. When it seems like here in America, we are so divided on everything and everyone is powerless to do anything about it. I mean, look at the speaker fight right now. I mean, my gosh, the House.
I was just about to say that exact same thing.
When we've got people that are up there that, it's just a disaster. But we can't agree on anything. And we're pointing fingers at each other like never before. I mean, there have been times before where the Republicans and the Democrats, they can have a consensus and they don't like this and they don't like that, but they kind of work something out. Now it's just like a battle royale every time they get together and they're accusing each other. I mean, guys, let's face it. Joe Biden standing up there and saying that the MAGA Republicans are the worst terror threat in the history of the U.S. That's divisive. It's wrong. It's wrong. I'm a MAGA Republican. I mean, I am. I believe in the Constitution, America first. I believe in all those things. It doesn't make me dangerous to anybody. That's not what we're about. But when
it really just makes you someone that loves your country.
Yeah. When I believe in the standard values that I've lived, and you know what? People do what they want to do to a point. But for me, I have my values. And to label me as a terrorist worse than Al Qaeda, I mean, are you kidding me? It's just ridiculous. So in the U.S. right now, we have a lot of just division, and it's funny to me, there's racial division to a point, but on my day-to-day, there's no racial. I mean, people just do what they do.
Yeah.
I walked into a grocery store the other day. There's this Hispanic family. There's a black family. There were actually Asians, which we don't have a whole lot of Asians here, but there were some Asians, doing some stuff from India or wherever, different people. Did you know that we actually shopped together and said, excuse me, and moved around like there was no problem? Yes, there are problems in certain places, but most of it's because of too much government support and creating a problem. But, I think that a lot of times these divisions are created, not necessarily on purpose sometimes, but it's just the result of these things. When we look at green energy and the massive, reckless push, I want you to think about it. It's reckless to go, we're going to stop fossil fuels at this date. So we got to change everything over when the infrastructure is not ready for it. We've talked about this before, but with power and everything, I mean, we're talking about loss. It's funny right now.
Germany?
No, California.
Mm-hmm.
They're having rolling blackouts and brownouts all the time. And yet they're going, everybody has to have an electric car, which puts a massive, huge strain.
And Germany, Germany has really pushed the green energy initiative this past year as well, the last several years. With the loss of power, the loss of electricity within their country, they have saw their GDP drop. I think it was 6% this year.
Wow.
It's a tremendous amount that they've seen their GDP drop because they can no longer produce what they were producing because they don't have the electricity and the power to be able to run their factories and run their homes.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. But, the thing is, Bangladesh was a perfect example of a nation that was coming out and up, and they were they were a vibrant middle class, and they started producing food, large amounts of food, and they were really moving up. And the U.S. goes in and says, y'all need to do this, this, and this to meet these green energy quotas, and we're going to pay you all this money to do it, which is our tax dollars. And then all of a sudden, people are starving to death there. They can't even feed themselves because of this green initiative. Well, I'm all about technology. I think great. The electric car, great. You know what? Fantastic. But don't force me and force this nation into something that we're just not ready for.
That's right. With anything, you build the infrastructure first, and then you have the transition.
And let it happen naturally.
That's right. That's right.
Which is a free market, capitalist government.
That's right.
Okay, so where are we? Because I want to make sure we get a couple. Well, then we have the AI, and that's just a whole nother deal for privacy and everything else. And of course, we talked about BRICS and losing the American dollar as the world currency, and and then the government comes in. They want to do a digital currency, which again will be the end of your privacy. Now, let's look at something. I'm going to give you a recommendation for a movie. And, you know, many of you know Duck Dynasty, Phil Robertson, you know, the Dynasty. I mean, we watched every episode. I love that. Those guys are crazy. And it was just a good family kind of friendly show, but yet it was extremely entertaining. So, you know, and then there's this movie that's just come out, The Blind. Now, great movie about Phil Robertson and what he went through, his struggle. And it's hard to watch at times because it was really tough. But I'm gonna give you something to think about. There was one point where Phil just became an alcoholic, and this isn't a spoiler of the movie, but he became an alcoholic, and because he was always about being out in the woods and hunting and fishing, and that was his whole life. That's all he cared about. He lived in this old trailer with no power. It was run down. There was trash everywhere. It was nasty, and he was just living out there. And he was drunk half the time, but he'd go out and fish and hunt, and that's how he lived. Mm-hmm. And he survived like that. When I was watching that, I was thinking, listen, guys, you know, we're preparing, we're doing things, you know, we're trying to get ourselves a little more self-sufficient, so in case hard times come, we're able to survive. That is where you're going to get to in a point. It's like there is nothing but I've got to feed myself. I don't have running water. I don't have electricity. I don't have a bathroom. You know, we just got to make it happen and however we can. And what we're talking about with all these events is it will bring a great economic strain to our persons, every one of us, and could actually send us back. If you lose power, you lose power, you know, and you lose water, terrorist attacks, whatever happens, different fallouts that can happen around, you know, a world war, a possible.
You think about it, you lose power and water, and we just drop back 150 years at the snap of a finger.
Right, without the ability and the skill to cope with it.
That's right.
Everything you do, and not necessarily getting down the list of food, water, medical, all those things, shelter, cleanliness is huge. Mm-hmm. Cleanliness is going to be big because there's, you know, with diseases and things that can happen. The more you prep, the farther out you are from caveman.
Or from just squalor.
Just squalor.
You know, just terrible living conditions.
Go down to any third world country. Robbie just got back from Guatemala. And there are certain areas down there that were just almost incapable of human living.
Yeah, I mean, it's the people of this country would have no idea how day-to-day subsistence living actually looks if you haven't physically seen it with your own eyes.
Right. And there are places like that all over the world. Yeah. Guys, when we're prepping, we're not prepping to survive, which we are prepping to survive, but we're prepping to thrive.
In a survival situation.
Right. Yep. It's not going to be like it is, but you can definitely keep some of those things that are going to bring you down to just Stone Age. It can lift you out of that. So anything that you are doing, you're out there prepping, and you're like, well, okay, I've got some food, I got my guns, and I got my ammo, and I'm ready to go. You know, and that's not enough. What if right now that's all you had? What if everything, you think about it, the lights went out, power went off, you're going, oh crap, what am I going to do? And it's time to take an evaluation of this. Take an evaluation of where you are in your preps. This is this Sensible Prepper channel, and that's what we're about. We're about helping and inspiring others to be prepared, because the better I'm prepared, the better my neighbor's prepared. Listen, the more that America is prepared, the less effect things happen when things go south. The more that we can not be worried about our next meal, but worried about how can we help one another to do better together. You know, working together, caring for each other. What are your assets for a prepping situation? Think about it. If your power and water right now and gas, your gasoline for your car, what if you couldn't get any of that right now? You're sitting here in a place, you're in your house, or you're wherever you're at work. What is going to put you ahead of everyone else that are going to be fighting for those resources, those limited resources?
And wintertime's coming.
Wintertime's coming. And that just makes it, more difficult in a sense, unless you're prepared. But have you put together the things that you need to be able to not only survive, but to thrive? I don't care how much you prepared, it's going to be tough. Doesn't matter. But how far along are you? And how have you built a community of people, your neighbors, your family, your friends, that can work together to get through this situation? That is the big question. So, and I want you to think about it with all these events. Listen, we can't do anything about what we've talked about. There is nothing. It is out of our control. We have no effect whatsoever. And you can call Congress and your senators, and they're so bound up in indecision and conflict that there's not a lot they're going to do about it or can do. So what are you going to do with all this stuff? Don't look at the world stage and go into fear mode. Don't do it. It's not about fear. What it should be is motivation to get you to go, okay, can't do nothing about that, but what can I do with what I got? And what can I do to help me to survive longer, better, healthier, and thrive? Do I want my family to be walking around looking for acorns and shooting squirrels, and that's how we're going to get by? Yep. Is that what I want? And then we got to grow corn because we got to have corn cobs to be able to wipe with. I don't think we want to go that place. I don't want to go there. I don't want you to go there. So world events, yeah. World War III, it's possible to probable.
That's right.
Could happen. What have you done to secure you and your family? Okay, let's go to some questions and then we'll wind it down. I like to give Sis Sarah Mack a little bit of a warning, but I'm just at that point.
Dewey Dude asked, I always conceal carry. Is it time to put a rifle in my vehicle?
Let me tell you something about that. And the thing is, and I keep one in my vehicle. You need to check your state laws. You just do. I mean, at least to know how to hide it better. But I'm going to give you a scenario because some people, you got the rifle in your car and then you come up on something. Do you have time to get it out? Do you have time to put on your plate carrier? Do you have, you can be in a situation to where there's something going on a little bit out of your reach to where it'll give you the time. To me, the worst thing I could think of is I pull up somewhere and then I see something going on like a block up. And I go, I need to help with that. Or I can do something about that. And then I can take and get myself prepared to do what I need to do. So
look at it from a little different scenario. You're at a concert and all of a sudden paragliders start coming in and people start shooting at you. Not saying that something like that could happen, but just look at past events. Is a rifle a good thing to have in your vehicle at that point? I would say absolutely.
Yes. So, and two, you're traveling, you're doing stuff. It's just more capability. Mm-hmm. More capability.
HG Pristine Care asks, how stable do you see propane availability being when SHTF?
Well, it'll dry up because there'll be such a demand for it.
I tell you something interesting, and I'm glad you brought that topic up. Something interesting that I've seen in the last few days, just in our area here, is the beginning of a gas shortage. I went to several different gas stations over the last few days, and half to 3/4 of their pumps were out of service because they didn't have fuel in them. Now, is this a predictor of anything that's coming or could potentially be coming? Possibly. We're talking about another war in the Middle East with countries that provide oil to the world, and those resources could very easily dry up for what we have in the United States. It can make it very difficult for us to get oil in the United States. And with already starting to see pumps drying up, pumps without fuel, I think this is a great time and a great opportunity for us that are aware of things and pay attention to what's going on in the world to go ahead and start stocking up, own some extra gasoline for our vehicles, own some extra propane for the wintertime coming up.
It's funny. We use this. Here's everybody kind of humming along. Crisis happens, and then if you can see the signs ahead of time, because when it starts here, it's too late. It's too late. Any product, just go down to where hurricanes getting ready to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Try to go buy some propane then, or try
That's
to
right.
buy some lumber.
Or a generator. Or,
when people start to buy, it'll dry up regardless of the supply.
Yep.
Now, one of the things about what Robbie was saying about fuel production or oil, we have one of the largest deposits of oil in the world right here in the U.S. And there is a dead stop fight to keep us from producing that. From pipelines being moved, from oil offshore. What's up with that? We need to be energy independent. And why we're not, the reasons, especially with what's going on in the world, should be even more important that we are producing the oils that we are. Now, unfortunately, because of that, it's going to cause a big problem. So, and then if we go into a war, you're really going to have some situations with fuels. I mean, fuel production is going to be used overseas and maybe even here. But the fact is we need to make sure, yes, I think you should definitely stock up on propane. If you have a home generator and you have natural gas, they can shut the natural gas off. There can be a shortage. There can be issues. So a lot of times, you feel like you're really prepared with propane and natural gas, but you need to think about that for sure right now with what's going on in the Middle East, even more so.
Be Real asked question: would you ever consider sharing, maybe along with your wives, how you use colloidal silver and the best brands, along with more about your medical preps and more natural treatments y'all use?
Well, let me tell you one thing, and I'll give you a little bit, but the problem with doing that is YouTube is shutting those down. One of the best YouTube channels, and it's Dr. I think his last name's Berg. I watch his channel. He's actually a chiropractor, but he is a brilliant, he brings in really incredible medical advice using the body and the natural elements. The guy's just incredible. And he's getting demonetized. He has 11 million subscribers, and he is getting videos taken down left and right. I will say this. We have been using colloidal silver for 30 years. And we have seen it effective over and over and over and over. One of the problems right now with the Berkey filter systems is that they're using silver. There's an element of silver in there, and the FDA is coming against them because of that. And that's one of the reasons why they're taking them off the shelves. So we actually produce our own colloidal silver with a pure silver anode and a battery. And and you can research it out, guys, and you can get it down. We've got the detectors to tell how many parts per million, and we do all that. It doesn't cost a lot to do that. If you go out and buy colloidal silver at your health food stores and everything, it can be expensive, but you can produce it on your own. We are very big into natural remedies. My wife is a labor and delivery nurse for over 20 years, and she's now a stay-at-home mom. But she is all about alternative operations. Different things that can happen. So the more things happen, and honestly, after COVID, our medical system has gone to pot.
Yeah.
It's pathetic. And so finding good doctors. Actually, we have a doctor that practices natural herbal Chinese medicines. He's not Chinese, but he is brilliant. He gets all kind of grants from all over the place to do things because he's so well respected. But he does alternative medicines. There are people out there that do that. You need to vet them. You need to be careful with who you're talking to and make sure that they're credible, because there are some kooks out there. But yes, but that's one reason why we have to be careful. Even those essential oils at one time, we had a friend of ours that did essential oils and talked about the properties. And they got a letter saying, if you don't stop, we're going to shut your channel down. So unfortunately, that's going to be more and more difficult to find.
Weapons Junkie asks, are you going to Mountain Readiness this weekend?
No, we're not. There are some really good prepper conferences out there. And in accordance to where your area is, we have a prepper camp that's just north of us. We used to do a lot of prepper conferences ourselves. We'd have 500 people there. It was great. We had some really good people that came out and spoke, and we did some stuff. But I've kind of been off of that for a while, so I don't really know who these the different conferences. But there are some good ones, and a lot of times if you're following guys that are, especially some of the bigger prepping channels that do a lot with others, you can find some of these conferences, and they're really worth going to, typically.
Justin Monday says, question, thoughts on 5.56 selling out and Biden's order to stop selling to civilians at that plant?
Yeah, that's Winchester. Do you know about all this? Winchester. No. The U.S. military is buying up 5.56, which this plant, I think it's the Lake City plant, and they are producing a lot of 5.56. They've stopped selling it to civilian markets. I'm not worried about that, mainly because we've got a lot of production here in the U.S.
Well, it's only been recently that the Lake City started back selling surplus ammunition on the civilian market within the last year or so. So with everything that's going on in the world, no, it does not surprise me at all that they're stopping their civilian sales in the United States. Now, they still have their military production and they still have their export production, which is going to other militaries around the world. But yeah, it's not surprising at all that the civilian side of that has already dried up. And you're going to start seeing an increase in ammunition prices again with everything that's going on in the world. You're going to start seeing ammunition start to dry up. So like we've talked about before, this is an opportunity while it's still available to go ahead, if you aren't stocked up on your ammunition, to get stocked up on that.
I'll tell you, Palmetto State Armory has been running some specials on 9mm and 5.56 that have been or 223. It's been absolutely mind-boggling. Yes, we've been talking about this, guys. I'm warning you now, and I warned you the other week.
Yep.
Buy your ammunition. If you have holes in your ammunition, if you have a couple of boxes of 223, get out and buy it, because we will have shortages.
Yep.
We've done it 18 times. 18 times we got complete shortages on our vital ammunition. Get out there and buy your ammunition now. I was at the gun show this past weekend. I expected a little more excitement, but people were just whatever.
Yeah.
So again, here we go. When it does this,
it's too late already.
When it does this, do not get in the comments and go, well, you got all the ammunition and now we don't have any. Buy it now, just like I did.
That's right.
Just like I did. I've bought more. And Fiocchi sponsors our ammo for our gun channel, but I don't use that for personal use. I value what they've done, and I use the ammunition that I bought. We're going Saturday. Going to go down to the range. Me and the family, we're going to do a training day just to shoot some and, for our self-defense. And I'm going to take a bunch of ammo and we're going to have a great time. But get your ammo stocked up now. That is a warning and a prophecy.
House of Windsor says, hi guys, we are late to the game, but thanks for your time. What type of shotgun shells would you suggest for 12 gauge?
Well, okay. Well, I'll let you take it, and I'll just kind of give mine.
So I'm a big fan of, if you're wanting to buy good high quality shotgun shells, Fiocchi shotgun shells are some of the best. They're a little more expensive than some of the others that are out there, but they are really, really good shotgun shells. If you're looking at bulk stuff, shop around a little bit online and see what you can find. Look at some of your retail stores that have birdshot on sale, and stock up on number 6, number 7.5, number 8, number 9 birdshot. You can use it for a variety of purposes. It's good to have some buckshot, double aught buck on hand. It's also good to have some slugs on hand for your shotgun. And really, honestly, it just kind of depends on where your budget is. If you can spend a little bit more, buy some higher quality ammo. If you're on a tighter budget, look at some of the value pack stuff that you can pick up at like your big box stores, be it Academy or Walmart or whatever. The bulk pack stuff, a lot of times you can save some pretty significant money on that. Just because it is a lower quality shell doesn't mean that it's not going to function and work well in your firearm.
Now, for me, as far as like for self-defense ammunition for shotguns, for years I've gone with the number 1 buck, just number 1. But there's a lot of, for in the home, course, one of the things about it is buckshot will go through sheetrock.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be careful. I know you, at one point, you had like, what were you using for shotgun?
For inside the house, I've still got number 8 birdshot.
Yeah.
In my shotgun, because everything's going to be close inside your home. Even down a long hallway, you're still only talking about 15, maybe 20 yards, and with the right choke, with just regular birdshot, it can be very, very devastating.
Yeah, but I typically do, and yes, I agree with Robbie. Having some slugs gives you a little more range capability, and too for barriers. But then of course, yeah, I mean, there's so much value shotgun shells out there typically to go out and just to shoot. But for self defense, I like to bump it up to at least magnum loads.
And double aught buck is for me, anything outside the home, double aught buck is the go-to. For inside the home, I like something with a little less energy, and even inside the home, you can go with a managed recoil double aught buck that's only at like 1,050 or 1,100 foot per second. Works great inside the home as well.
Yeah, and they had the low, just the low recoil buckshot. It's actually, especially if you have people in your home that aren't used to shooting as much, and it help. It's just an advantage.
And the managed recoil, I highly recommend it. It works extremely well for defensive or for hunting purposes with the double aught buck without beating your shoulder up. It's a managed recoil stuff. Recoils about like birdshot. It's very manageable.
All right, keep on. Oh, we're down. We are down by the count. Down on the count. Okay, one thing we're going to leave you with. While everything, again, is turbulent and you need to keep your eyes on it, I agree with Robbie. I think looking at some outside the sources from other countries, India is one that a lot of times will bring a different perspective to the world stage. But knowing some things and not just relying on U.S. news necessarily. But guys, again, there is not a lot we can do about this right here, what's going on the world stage, but there is a lot we can do with our personal level. And so make sure that you are getting your preps together. Make sure that you're taking care of the necessities, but to thrive and not just to barely survive. I think that is one point that I really want to stress, because I don't want to live in a third world environment.
No.
May have to, and we will, but the more that I can do to get myself distance from that, the better. Also, the last thing we want to talk about, and just for right here at the end, is, guys, the only thing to me that can save this world and definitely our nation right now is a return to our faith and return to God, which gets our eyes off of ourselves, gives us something that's bigger than us, that we can serve, that we can take care of, and that we can love people and take care of them and have more wisdom.
Too many people in this world are following man's law, and we've turned our back on God's law.
Right.
And that's where we need to be, is following God's law and our spiritual lives every single day.
Right. Right. It puts you outside of just your little bubble. And it makes you realize that there is something that you're accountable to and something that is greater than you, where you have a mission, and carry that mission out. It's just vital for our nation right now, especially. All right, guys, we really appreciate you being here today, and want to thank Sarah Mack for monitoring the questions and giving the questions. And also, Robbie, it's always good to have you with us.
Great to be here.
And check out Wheaton Arms. Check out Wheaton Arms, and then check out Robbie Wheaton's YouTube channel. Robbie makes some of the best Glock aftermarket parts on the market, and he does it for the Palmetto State Armory daggers. They use his parts for their upgrades, and so just a great. Their flat face trigger is the best on the market. So I just hate I missed that at the beginning. I always talk about it. We got sidetracked. Also, Exotac again. 20% off using Sootch 20 with the link down below in the description, and the best fire starter tools out there. Great. And fire is essential. It's one of the most essential elements that we have. And it can cook your water, it boils your food, it gives you heat, gives you light.
cook your water and boil your food. That was
You like
awesome.
that?
That was
Well, you
good.
might want to boil a squirrel. Guys, you ought to see what he has to deal with. All right. So, again, thanks a million. Thanks for the great questions. And you guys be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic.